Did you ever have one of those times when you felt like your child was throwing some kind of tantrum and screaming, and you were exhausted pulling your hair out and you tried everything and finally you just let them cry it out? It's really upsetting, right? Because you wish you could have intercepted sooner and not let them get so upset. And you even gave them what they wanted sometimes, and then they still stay upset. Well, in this video, I'm going to help you narrow down how to intercept, give you some tips so you can start deciphering like what might be going on during that behavior so you can try to help your child. Now, this is only one of the videos that I've created for you, and I keep them short and to the point so that you can have some ideas that you can start using right away. The videos stack on top of each other, and there's a series of them. So if you really want to see some significant changes, I recommend watching all of them and getting the guidebook at kidsmoveandlearn.com. And if you can't download it right now, just grab a piece of paper and take notes. And I guarantee you're going to find a couple of tips and tricks that you can start using right away today. So just to recap a little bit of some of the other videos is that this table is what was shared, and that these are three key obstacles that get in the way of guiding behavior. It suggests that when one area is out of whack, then that's where you would want to focus. So that way you can guide behavior where you want to go. So you want to try to keep these three areas aligned to make better changes. So in this video, it's going to be more about analyzing which one of those three is out of whack and start figuring out why so that you can narrow down and intercept that specific spot. But I first want to give you an example of why it's really important to get to the root of the problem so that way you can focus your efforts on the right place and focus on the real issue. And here's an interesting story about the DC monuments. Is years ago, they were starting to show damage from cleaning products. So they started reducing the cleaning products, but it didn't really help. Then they looked more closely and they realized that they needed to clean so much because of all the bird droppings. But then they were like, well, why is there so many bird droppings? And then they realized that's because there's so many spiders for the birds to eat. So then, of course, they asked, why are there so many spiders? And then they figured out it's because there's tons of insects there that the spiders eat. And when they did a little more digging, they realized that all these insects came when they turned the lights on, the monument lights on at dusk. And so all they did was they adjusted the timing of turning on the lights, which reduced the number of insects that came, reduced the number of spiders, reduced the number of birds, it reduced the amount of bird droppings, and then reduce the amount of cleaning that was needed. If they had tried to intervene at any of those other stages, it might have helped, but it may not have made as much of a difference as getting to the root of the problem. So this is why it's important to really observe your child and recognize what needs to be addressed first. And you want to think also about what is your clear expectation that you have for your child. You can't do everything at once with these little videos and these courses. So as you go through the rest of this video, think about one key expectation that you have that you want them to follow and write that down at the top of your page so that as you analyze these things, you can reference and think about it just in that context. Because as you know, kids do things in one day and not the other, or they do it some of the times and not all of the time. But before you can figure out what obstacle needs to be addressed first, it's helpful to think about what it actually looks like and then what are some of the causes. So this is what connected looks like. It's usually in a joyful setting. You and the child feeling connected, you have appreciated joint ways of getting attention, a secure attachment. Then also there's like eye contact and you're feeling safe and comfortable. Things are predictable. You're in a routine and it has predictable results. And so then the opposite to that is what disconnected looks like. And here are just some examples of what it may look like. So write down some of the things that you've noticed in your child. Write it down next to them, also the context of that behavior. So for example, if my son is avoiding my eye contact, I might write next to it when I give him a 5-minute warning for something. So that way I know that that eye contact isn't all the time. It's really specifically around when I give them a 5-minute warning. Now let's talk about what being present looks like. As you can see, it's usually, again, more of that joyful, playful feeling, but it's also being in the moment. Physically relaxed or excited, you're attentive to something. Usually it's also about self-pace. So the opposite of not being present or not being in the moment looks like this. So take a look at this list and think about your child when you're trying to give directions. Is there a possible reason of one of these things on the list that may be interfering in them actually listening to you? Write it down again next to the context. So for me, for example, when I give bedtime warning, my son gets extra hyper. So I know that he's not really being present in the moment with me listening because he's actually hyper. So now let's think about skills. It means usually they can do something on their own, they can do it most of the time, they can transfer it from different settings from one place to the next. And then the opposite to that is usually when you are giving directions and they're showing one of these signs, that means that they might need some more support in the skilled. Like maybe they're trying it, but they just can't seem to do it. Or maybe they seem to do it only when they need help. Well, then they might need skill around independence. Or they use the words like, I can't, or it's too hard. Sometimes when children are hesitant or they're stalling, it means also that they need some skills. For example, my son needed his playroom rearranged. So I organized it all for him one night. And then when he came back, he was like so hesitant and stalled and he constantly stopped. He needed the expectations and skills around how to clean up his playroom again because he wasn't sure where things really went. When you're able to focus in and see where the need is on a specific obstacle, then it's going to be easier to intercept and you can get your kids to start following your directions. And in future videos, I go into greater detail for each one of these obstacles. So this video is really just a brief summary of it because my promise to busy parents is to make the videos short. Because just remember, disconnected is that emotional feeling connection pieces where they need that predictability, they need joy and contentment, and they need to know that they can play again later. Presence is usually the timing. They live in the here and now. We need to help shift their mindset to be thinking about the present moment. So often the warnings come into play with that. And a skill is that they can follow their abilities. Like they know what is being asked of them and they can actually physically and cognitively and emotionally like do it. And sometimes one of those three are off. And so that might be where you need to intercept. Look at your expectation, review it, make sure it's written at the top of your page so you can go back and analyze some of the descriptions about what it looks like and sounds like for that expectation and think about what is it that's holding them back possibly. Circle the things that you see most commonly happening on that list and maybe make a note or two underneath about the context of where they're seem to be losing that focus. And also maybe make a note underneath each one of those areas to put some context around that obstacle. And as you go through that, you'll see where your child might need the most help. And so that'll give you direction on where you want to start. Because remember, in this video, we just covered, that observing behavior is going to be able to tell you what obstacle you're facing. And what I really recommend to help you with this video and some tips is that when you review these obstacles, review these causes, observe your child and consider what's the causes for their behavior, then you're going to be able to start intercepting and helping them when you need to help them. Don't forget, the guidebook can be found at kidsmoveandlearn.com and also in the link below. When you're ready, come back for the next video. And it's all about having negative attention and turning it into positive attention. And this is where we'll dive deep into understanding some of the connection and routine obstacle. And you'll walk away with some tips to help you. Don't forget, if you like this video or find any of it helpful, please share and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you will get notified as soon as new videos are available.